I'm going to talk a little bit about today about Alex Van Halen's book. I listened to the audio version. I'm going to be talking about that a little bit, and of course talking about the reunion tour, the Best of Both Worlds tour, or the Best of All Worlds tour, whatever the heck it's called. And I'm not going to get too much deep into that because I've covered that topic in a couple of my other videos. Wanting one and then asking one, why hasn't there been one? But we have definitely more answers to that, but there's still no actual solution or anything about anything else. It's just Michael Anthony and Sammy Hagar. Let's get right into it. The Alex Van Halen book, now I just definitely wanted to been checking that out. As you know, I did the Brian Johnson book and the Rob Halford book. And then I had that, and I was like, oh, it's not coming out until like October or something. And then I was like, all right, I'll wait. Finally, the book was out and it was available, but I've forgotten about it for a full week. But there's been other people talking about it and or mentioning the book. Nobody's actually done any full review of it, but people have mentioned it and just talked about his book Brothers, just talks about Eddie Van Halen and stuff like that. And of course, the band Van Halen. So let's get into it. Of course, just like with any of these stories, people want to know their background. So he talks about the background. Once again, I'm not going to go giving away specific details. I do want you to check it out. I think it's a pretty good book, but there's some things I didn't like about it. What I did like about it was how the fact that he talked about their childhood and what their father did and helped them with, within the music business. They're playing clubs with them and stuff. In the early days, just all these other funny, crazy, corny stories that they did and how wild and crazy they were with their drinking and drug use, pot, I guess, primarily. But doing pot and just being wild on the road. And yeah, sound like fun. So one of the highlights, what I liked about it in the book, is I was like, oh yeah, I've always seen that picture. And I wasn't sure what kind of promotional picture it was, or that would have been like a Wicked album cover or whatever. And it's on, I'm not sure if it's on that one, but it's on that. It's a picture of the collage I made of the other Van Halen thing. Is the Van Halen standing on the tank with the tank crushing that Volkswagen Bug from like 77. But it's a picture from like 78 or 79, I believe. But anyways, that's a really cool picture, and I've always liked that, and I just thought it was just a really interesting thing. So I won't give it away, but Alex Van Halen talks about that right there, about that picture. And I was like, oh, that's the connection with that. That's kind of interesting. But anyways, I really enjoyed the book. My only disappointment was he didn't mention Sam Hagar at all. He didn't mention SH at all. He mentioned Michael Anthony a little bit, and then that was it. He mentioned Gary Sharon once, and then Mike Stone. And that was really it. He just mentioned their names and just a quick little one-sentence deal of them. But it was just really strange. He didn't mention anything about 5150. He talked about the studio 5150, which is good. But he didn't talk about or mention anything about Sammy joining the 5150 album, or U812, Falling Off with Carnal Knowledge, Balance, nothing. Not even a different kind of truth. He didn't talk about the making of that or how they decided to go. He didn't mention the Grammys, about David Lee Roth being a prick during the Grammys and wanting to steal the spotlight. So there's just a lot of stuff that he didn't talk about. It was weird because the book is like 6 hours long, and I listened a few times at 2 hours a piece or so, maybe even, less than 3 times. I can't even remember, but it just really went by quick. And I've been wanting to do a video on this. For the past week, but of course, because I haven't been feeling good. So not mention of a tribute show. So real quickly about a tribute show or the tribute show. Michael Anthony and Sammy Hagar on that Best of All Worlds tour. And they've invited Alex, for those of you who don't know, they've invited Alex Van Halen. They called him several times. He refused to respond to him, which definitely sounds very believable. They reached out to Wolfgang. Wolfgang declined. Wolfgang said he doesn't want to, or whatever. Okay. And now we even hear the latest news is Joe Satriani doesn't want to do the tour. Everybody's saying that now they don't feel like doing it. And it's just very strange. We all know the thing about David Roth. I mentioned it before. If you haven't seen my other video, I'll mention it here real quick. David Roth is a prick, and he's impossible and really difficult to get along with. So Sammy Hagar didn't invite him on a full tour with both of them. It would have been cool. It would have been awesome if everybody that was in the Van Halen family and lineup, band, whatever you want to call it, Van Halen camp, participated in this. It would have been a great tribute thing to Eddie. He definitely deserves it. But one of the other last quotes that Alex Van Halen has said is that it wouldn't do him justice. Okay, well, what's the deal with that? There's other people playing his songs anyways. Sammy and Michael are on the road, and they were going to have Joe Satriani do it, unless Joe Satriani changed his mind. I thought that way too. You know, what the heck? There's all these other tribute shows to these other people who I've mentioned before, and it's just like, well, why not Eddie Van Halen? People would like to hear his music. It's been a good number of years since they were on tour. I'm sure there's other newer fans and or even older fans who'd like to go to the show. See a lot of them, most of all the members that were like within the band participating and celebrating Eddie Van Halen's great guitar, wizardry and all this other stuff. Not concentrating on the bad stuff and the bad stuff that he did and said and all this other stuff, but concentrating and just focusing on and celebrating the music that Eddie Van Halen created. I mean, he was incredible. I didn't discover him until, of course, years later. I didn't discover him in 77, 78. Would have been cool if I did, but I didn't. But anyways, that was my final thought on that. That's what I've heard was the final thing that Alex Van Halen said. It wouldn't do any justice to him. A lot of fans are scratching their head and thinking, well, why not? Well, when is there going to be? And it probably just never will be, with the exception of the Sammy and Michael Anthony tour, which I don't really know if that has started or who's doing what. My final thoughts on this are, as Alex Van Halen has said before, and Eddie Van Halen has said before, that they actually would never really do a solo album because, of course, both of them are just, Van Halen is their thing. That's their solo album right there. There's no reason to go out and do a solo album with another band. Like, for instance, Alex playing in a band and he does a solo album. Most drummers don't. But even Eddie Van Halen, he would want Alex to be the drummer, which of course made sense. But now that things have changed and it's just Alex, and Alex is not with Sammy or Dave, or any of those guys, he's not going to join the band. So what is he going to do? Is he going to put out a solo album? That's what I would like to see. Of course, I know he's probably not a singer. I think it would be cool if Alex Van Halen came out with a solo album, even if it wasn't just singing. I know whoever heard of a drummer releasing a solo album, that doesn't even make any dang sense. But Phil Rudd did, of all people. Phil Rudd from AC/DC did. But anyways, my point is that even if like Alex kind of jokingly sang on one, who knows? He probably has like a wicked singing voice. Who the heck knows? Probably not, most likely not. They would have used it in Van Halen if he did. But what I'm saying is it'd be cool if you put out just an album or just like a CD with just like several songs with just beats on it. Now you could hire other musicians. You could do like a drum solo thing. You do some other cool beats where you add some new stuff to it and do some all kinds of like a percussion CD thing. And even if it's all instrumental, it's not going to sell well. That's not the point. There'll be a lot of fans that would buy it and like to check it out. I would. It'd be cool if you had a couple of other different musicians on there, whether the guys that have to do with Van Halen, and there were guys who had nothing to do with Van Halen at all, and he just wants different musicians on there. I'm sure he could easily find some of the guy that plays guitar or bass or something on there, or something of that nature, to say, hey, you want to be on the album? And most of them be like, oh yeah, hey, why not? So they would perform on the album. It would just be instrumentals, and it would just be Alex Van Halen's drum set turned up, and Alex Van Halen playing his like other wicked fills. A couple of simple beats and songs at first, or in between there, but a couple good like rocky ones where he's just really like going crazy on the drums, with the music and or without additional music, keyboards too. That's what I think. That would be cool. I don't see what he's planning on doing if he's not going to want to do anything with the Van Halen tour. And if he's not going to be wanting to do anything with any other newer band, I don't really see how and what he's going to do. We want to hear from Alex Van Halen because Alex Van Halen was a cool, great drummer, and a lot of people liked him. The guy was just an awesome drummer, and we admire him, and we just want to hear more other stuff from him, and really want to hear him shine on some songs. Thanks for checking it out.
He carried it every night, like, and the horseman with the flagman on the horse in the cavalry. That was Michael Anthony, okay?